Right, this video is to show you how to find sources using Google Scholar. In the background here are some of the skeletons from the A&P lab. You can see they were kind of chumming around on this day. That's not the screen I wanted. That's right. So the way to start to go to Google Scholar is to go to scholar.google.com. And if you just have to type in Scholar, it should come up as one of your choices. And the Google Scholar you use in the same way with Boolean operators as we use other databases. So in my last example, I used a gorilla habitat in Uganda. Why don't we look up something on COVID-19, perhaps, and its relationship to bats? Maybe your research question had to do with that. So we can start by doing something like, we don't want to be extremely specific, but we could type in COVID and bats. I'm just going to put bat the singular because it'll pick up both bat and bats. And note here you can choose between articles and case law. That's because it's also used for law schools, and they don't look up articles, they look up case law. We need to make sure the articles button right here is checked for this. And then we can go ahead and do our search. And now we can limit our search in much the same way we did in some of the other databases. Over here we can, if this will let me draw, it's not going to let me draw. But over on the left, you have the article that's underneath where it says articles. If you see since 2020, since 2019, since 2016, obviously if we're talking about COVID, we may want to focus on since 2019, perhaps even only 2020, but let's at least start by clicking on since 2019. And we also have sort by relevance, is sort by date, because sometimes you want to just get to see what was most recently published. Do we want to include patents? No, actually we don't. Do we want to include citations? No, actually we don't. One kind of neat thing about Google Scholar, and you can actually do this with some other databases, is down at the bottom where it creates an alert. If any new article comes out that meets these parameters, you'll get an email that'll tell you, hey, there's a new article, why don't you check it out? Now, the next thing I want to show you, before we even look at the articles, so over here on the right, for some reason it's not drawing outside of the center part here, but where you have these links, you can definitely link to the article and find the entire article. But note, if I scroll down, that is not true for every article. Some of these you cannot access. And so it's going to be important for you to, if you use this database, to be aware of what's available and what is not, rather than taking a lot of time on a reference and then finding out it's not one that you can usually, that you can even access, and so will not be able to use. The other thing you can look at is kind of underneath here. If you see some of the things underneath, you can find related articles. There are ways to cite this. I'll show you that in a moment. There are additional items here. Star just keeps it, hey, saved, so you can find it again. Here's the more views in HTML rather than as a PDF. Typically, I advise downloading as a PDF. But if you really like this particular article, well, if you click on related articles, it will bring up more articles that are similar to that particular article. Anyway, that's the way you can find and limit searches on Google Scholar. And of course, you can always add in more words to be able to do this. Now, if you click this Cite button here, These are different citation formats, and you can merely copy the format that you would like to use. Now, for our particular class, the one that is closest to what we use is down here at the bottom, is the Vancouver style, where you can just click. You could do a Control-C for copy, or you could right-click your mouse and you could copy, and then you could go to your document and paste. You would still need to adjust your formatting just a little bit in order to make this a valid reference for this class, because this is still not correctly formatted. It's just closer than other formats. So if I bring up a document here and I put that down, there's only one author, so we don't have to change that. The title is okay, we don't have to change that. But for our format, we want the journal to be italicized. So there's the name of the journal, italicized. We don't need the month and day of publication, so we're going to delete that. We don't need, this is the volume number here. We do need that. We don't need the issue number, although it's okay to include that. That's the part in parentheses here. So we're going to delete that. And then we have the page numbers. Now we're still not done. We need to have a space between the year and the volume number. So between the semicolon and the number here, another space between the volume number and the page numbers. So after the colon here, we need a space. And then we need to use what are called inclusive page numbers. And that's where this is going to be 131 to 136 rather than 131-6. Now this reference is actually formatted correctly for this class. And that can be an easy way to get there, is go to Google Scholar, get the reference, but then you'll still have to make these particular changes. And that's how to use Google Scholar.